All right, Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good morning, good morning, good morning to this, the Wednesday edition of Vuka Nazo, your morning news analysis show. My name is Sihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. I can tell by my numbers that the holiday spirit is clearly beginning to kick in. And as South Africans gear up to Christmas, of course, which will be on Sunday. So with that being said, we're going to try and keep the show a little bit shorter than usual. Remember, Vuka Nazo is your morning news analysis show with me, Usihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. Your only price of admission here on our weekday news analysis show is to hit that like button, whether you're watching this stream via YouTube, Facebook, or on Twitter. Just hit the like button. Do me a solid favor in that regard, whether you're watching right now live, or of course, there's recording throughout the day. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, an even bigger favor you can do for moi is, of course, subscribing to the channel. Help me reach my goal of 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Good luck to me trying to do that. It's a very tall order. We're only sitting at 37,000 plus, but good effort nonetheless. And of course, remember, we have a website. Find us at bigdaddyliberty.com. There, of course, you can also pledge some support to the channel. It's as easy peasy. All the payment methods you could possibly need are on there. And yeah, as I said, it really is the funds that we use to build the momentum on the show. Now, with that being said, enough with that jibber jabber. How about we get straight into the news? Righto. Okay, so this morning, you can imagine the ANC fresh off of the high of its elective conference. Ramaphosa, of course, feeling very secure at the moment, having rather given a big drubbing to his opponent, Zweli Mkhize, who of course had yoked himself to the RET faction, and indeed Jacob Zuma. Effectively, as I mentioned, the ANC riding that high then. One of the promises it made in its high state, if I can continue with this analogy, is this idea that it's going to be deploying soldiers, it told us, to protect Eskom power stations against sabotage. Now, a lot of us were scratching our heads a little bit and going, soldiers? Why soldiers? You could more effectively do a better job of protecting our power plants from the said sabotage by doing two things. One, bolstering actual police capacity, investigative capacity, opening up the books and the contracts of Eskom to scrutiny so that we can find out who these supposed saboteurs are who are looking to sabotage Eskom procurement processes in order to get contracts at Eskom. And of course, the second thing, pardon me, you could have done, which would have been much more effective, is hire the private sector to guard these particular these power stations. I mean, it doesn't make sense to deploy the army. It's using effectively a hammer for what is effectively what needs a screwdriver. But nonetheless, that's what the ANC has done. Populist move as it is. EWN piece, which basically points out that, hey, the soldiers are well deployed. There they are on the ground. Troop deployment to Eskom power plants in full force, say the South African National Defence Force. They have men and women in uniform there looking rather ragtag a little bit, but nonetheless, ready to be deployed. It said, of course, this is Eskom, that one of the state's responses to incidents of theft and sabotage have been taking place at the beleaguered power utility, that's Eskom, amid crippling blackouts. The SANDF spokesperson, that's the South African National Defence Force spokesperson, Andries Mahapa, said that the soldiers would be stationed at the Camden, Tutuga, Majuba, and Grootvlei power stations until the threats of criminality subside. Now, again, quick bookmark before I continue reading. It comes back to the point I was just making earlier on. Why? Why soldiers? And why not effectively private security or even the police, both insofar as visible policing at these particular power plants and also investigating the culprits, going after the people who are alleged to be the saboteurs. But nonetheless, as I read on here, as the Defence Force, it's quoting, of course, the spokesperson, as the Defence Force, it is one of our primary functions to protect critical infrastructure as part of our, quote, Operation Prosper, in support of the South African Police Service. Now, Eyewitness News, that's the actual publication we're reading this from, visited the Grootfontein power station in Mpumalanga and mentioned that at least 4 surveillance cameras could be seen or spotted along a 3-kilometer road stretch leading to the facility, here's the thing, while no members of the SANDF could actually be spotted outside Grootfontein. A security officer told Eyewitness News that several members of the army had, though, arrived on Monday. End of quote. Again, as I conclude the story, one has to be very careful of politicians pushing a very populist intervention, when in reality, what is actually needed to address the problem might actually involve getting rid of some of the very politicians themselves. Let me be precise, and specific. Eskom's problems stem from the overall political structure of Eskom and how it is operated and managed as a state-owned enterprise. Whenever anything is a state-owned enterprise, you can bet your bottom dollar that politicians, the very people who control the state, their fingerprints will be all over what is supposedly happening and going wrong with Eskom. So that actually the sabotage isn't some outside enemy that needs the South African National Defence Force. The sabotage is done by people who are very much part of the political elites. It is the culture, the policy of BEE and other such policy that has created the culture of entitlement that we're seeing from the people who procure, or rather Eskom procures its services for, the people who rather Eskom procures services from under the guise of race-based empowerment legislation in this country. Those individuals are people who are basically within the political elite, and it has been supposedly the efforts to clean that up by the current administration of Eskom, which has seen allegedly these acts of sabotage happening at Eskom. So that really, it doesn't really matter if you have the soldiers there or not, until you have security forces that can actually investigate, bring charges, those charges ventilated in court and people arrested, or rather people locked up. Until that is the status quo, then lawlessness will continue in this country until you break away from policies that create the very entitlement that we're seeing, that see people actually even believe that, heck, if I don't get the contract at Eskom, then I'll just destroy the very institutions. Until you change that, nothing will change at Eskom. All right, I'm going to move us on to our next story for this morning, indeed perhaps the last story for the moment. Oh, my chest is still watery, but nonetheless. All right, Johannesburg, the City of Joburg, is definitely going after a problem in this country which really is a defining problem. Defining in the sense that it pits us, ordinary faith, flag, family, and freedom types of citizens, South Africans, against not only the politicians and the political elites, but again, a culture which they are fostering, as the politicians in this country, given their ideology, do not respect life, liberty, or property rights in particular. Property rights is the focus of this particular story over here. Let me just quickly put it up on screen, where the City of Johannesburg is bucking that trend a little bit, insofar as the politicians there are actually looking to take property rights seriously. How? You're wondering? Well, they're looking to fight these illegal shack dwellers, or rather illegal shacks. Yeah, I'm right, illegal shacks that are popping up all over Johannesburg. There he is on screen. The Joburg Safety MMC, that's MACO member, will go to court rather than rehome dwellers whose illegal shacks were destroyed. There's an image there of a forlorn individual having their shack destroyed there. Again, the issue being here, the illegal land invasions which dot cities across this country and are creating a massive problem in terms of city infrastructure and the like. Public Safety MMC, that's David Tembe, said he would rather go to court than rehome people living in illegal dwellings. Officers were removing about 50 shacks in Johannesburg on Tuesday. The removal comes after complaints over crime in the area, believed, of course, to originate from the illegal settlements. Let me just quickly actually take you here to some of these images. Let's see if it'll actually play. Okay. Well, nonetheless, here's some images. I'm sure you can see them. Let me just zoom in a little bit. That might help. Here's some images of the, Metro Police in the area. Obviously, massive operation removing shack dwellers and indeed the effectively illegal land invasions that happen across the city. The operation involves, of course, members of the South African Police Service, Johannesburg Metro Police, security companies, and of course, community patrollers who work together to prevent crime. Dembe, that's the MACO member in that part of the world, said Tuesday's operation came after complaints about the growing settlement. My job, he's quoted as saying, is to ensure I can do whatever to prevent crime. If it means going to court, I'm prepared to go to court. It's the same with the illegal bus ranks popping up all over the city. We're changing the way we do politics. We can't be pushed around. That's, of course, according to David Tembe. Again, another one of his tweets over here. David Tembe pushing what he says is Operation Buyamthetho. That's a Zulu expression for return the law. You see his metro officers there doing a big cleanup. Anyway, that's, of course, David Tembe. Again, I'm dwelling on this particular issue for two reasons. The issue of illegal land invasions is a massive one, and it pits, as I said, often us ordinary law-abiding citizens with the politicians, often leftist politicians, the socialist and communist like, the ANC and EFF, who believe that property rights, or that rather citizens should not have property rights, and that those rights should be vested as privileges dispensed by the political elites, dispensed by the state, which is why, for instance, you'll see the EFF actively encourage illegal land invasions, where if you see a, quote, open piece of land, you have these peddlers, these pushers that the EFF has around the country who you then think will give that land for free, but no, they don't. They sell, often allegedly, those plots of land to desperate people looking to build homes across this country. So that, don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming the people who are looking for space to build home. Of course, people have that demand, but the issue becomes, does that demand happen under a climate of law and order and the rule of law, where people purchase property so that they can have something that they call theirs? Or does it happen under a culture of a free-for-all, where politicians and peddlers, especially of a leftist variant like the EFF, go around the country confiscating people's land, as is what they are intending to do. Hence, they push policies like land expropriation without compensation, confiscating other people's property in order to then give it yet to someone else, and not even give it, to sell it to someone else, so that they profit whilst they create overall misery in society. That's what the policy of land expropriation without compensation is. That's how, so far, before they enacted in actual law, the illegal land invasions is exactly how land, or EWC, has been happening thus far. So that when you have a politician like David Tembe actually saying, no, this is wrong, this is illegal and it's immoral, effectively, to do this, and he's pushing back using the very same state apparatus, politicians like that actually should be supported. And I indeed support politicians like that, because I can tell you now, land invasions are a much bigger problem, and indeed the mushrooming of informal settlements dotting across the landscape of any municipality are an immense problem for any administration run by opposition coalition parties or even the ANC itself, because the municipality simply doesn't have the resources to look after those people. Because why? Those informal settlements often mushroom in an uncontrolled way and an unbudgeted way. So you actually have to have the rule of law in place in order to stymie this and actually have development, or rather communities developed, in a much more structured way. This is not a snobbish viewpoint or a capitalist viewpoint. It's a function of law and order. And if anything, this is my parting shot. One of the things we need to start doing as ordinary South Africans, rich and poor, is actually say, how about we stand for the rule of law? How much we stump for being a country that does things by the book? All right, folks, that's it from me this morning for Vuka Nazo. I hope you enjoyed this episode, short and sweet. Remember, I will be on your screens every morning this week. This is my final week before I take a break until January, but which is funny because it's not much of a break either, because there's a lot of planning we're doing in the background. We're going to be launching some very interesting stuff next year, so please stay tuned for that. But nonetheless, as I said, you're going to see me twice a day this week, in the mornings for Vuka Nazo, and every evening this week at 7 p.m., pardon me, for the Big Daddy Liberty Show. I'll have a different guest and we'll break down the news day that was and other topics that will interest you. You're welcome to suggest some guests who want me to interview. Pardon me, I started there for whatever reason. But nonetheless, that's the offering I'll be giving you this week. Twice a day, you'll see this beautiful Zulu mug on your screens. Now, guys, with that being said, a reminder, if you like the show, hit that like button, especially if you're watching on any of our platforms, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. And if you are on YouTube in particular, subscribe to the channel. Find us on our website at bigdaddyliberty.com. Now, with that being said, thank you for watching. See you tomorrow, bright and early, for another episode of Vuka Nazo.